Good afternoon. I'm Terry Keys, the Cancer Education Liaison for the Markey Cancer Center and a staff senator and member of the Professional Development Committee. I'd like to welcome you to this month's installment of the UK Staff Senate's Lunch and Learn series, where we discuss a wide range of topics to inform and enlighten. We meet at noon on the third Friday of every month, and our next Lunch and Learn will take place June the 17th with UK's Azetta Beatty presenting Agreements for Thriving. So thriving is in life is an intentional choice that requires some consistent positive actions to help us enjoy life. And Azetta will outline those steps for us next month. So we hope that you will be with us to hear about how we can take care of ourselves the best way possible. So you'll be looking for an email with that registration information that's sent out through our listserv. And be sure to tell a friend to join us because we're all about getting the information out as best we can. A couple of other announcements before we get started. The election period for Staff Senate, Women's Forum, and the staff representative to the Board of Trustees is currently open until May the 22nd. So I will put a link to that in the chat a little bit later in our presentation today. And also, UK Employee Appreciation Day is Thursday, May the 26th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. outside of the Gatton Student Center. If it rains, we'll go inside, but the hope is that we can be outside. And we hope that you and all of your colleagues will be with us that day to enjoy celebrating ourselves. It'll be a great day. And finally, the Staff Senate Community Outreach Committee has formed a team for the Make-A-Wish Walk for Wishes event. It's going to be at 8 a.m. Saturday, August the 27th. So we've got a little time at Evans Orchard. You can join the team or donate money using the link that I'll put in the chat a little bit later. And the goal is to raise $1,000 for that event. And again, I will put those links for that later in our presentation period. As announced for today, as announced, we have a double feature presentation, and both are about finances. The first is how to save for college, and the second is how to control debt. And for that double feature, we have 2 stars today. The first is Joseph Wilcox with Kentucky Saves 529, and he will present Turning Paychecks into Diplomas. And the second is Erica Linc with GreenPath, who will present Debt Coaching, a resource for taking control of your debt. I will introduce Erica at the beginning of her presentation, but we'll start with Joseph Wilcox. Joe is the Institutional Relationship Manager for Kentucky Saves 29, a financial mechanism used by individuals and families to save for college in a tax-advantaged way. Joe worked for 15 years in the financial industry before joining Kentucky Saves 529 as a Lexington native and as UK graduate. So just a quick note, if you have questions for today's speaker, please use the chat feature to type your question. Or if you prefer to ask your question, you can raise your hand, but we'd rather have those questions at the end of the presentations instead of in the middle. So if you have a question that's about something that needs clarification for you in order for the topic to make sense, please put it in the chat and I will introduce the speaker. I will interrupt the speaker and ask your question. Right? We will acknowledge you to ask your question when it comes time for the verbal questions. All right? I think that takes care of all of our housekeeping, so I'd like to welcome Joe to present his topic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that introduction there, Terry. Really appreciate it, and really excited to be here today with the University of Kentucky. The university's been a great partner with KY Saves 529, and just really looking forward to spending a little time with everyone here today. I'm going to talk about the benefits and features of KY Saves 529 and how it can help you to save more, and especially by contributing by payroll direct deposit, turn your paycheck into diplomas for your children. I'll show you also a couple of ways you can boost your savings with KY Saves 529. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to hopefully share my screen here. All right. So whenever I talk about saving for education, you always want to talk about a little bit how much it costs. So I'm sure this audience is well aware of the high cost of education. The average public university these days running around $25,000. The average private university is running around $50,000. So that's it all in. If your child lived on campus, got a meal plan, all the books and fees and everything. So if you have young children, you can see the slope there, how it's, increasing pretty quickly. So kind of gives you an idea of what you're up against. The good news is most children are not going to pay full price. On average, they're going to receive a financial aid package from the school that they choose around $15,000. And a big chunk of that is grant and scholarship aid, which averages nationally around 10,000. So 10,000 is really good, but if it costs 25, there's a lot of room you got to make up there. So you got to do it somehow, either saving or by borrowing. And, obviously we want to keep borrowing to a minimum. So I do have a couple of examples here just to kind of, reinforce the benefits of saving versus borrowing. In this example here, we're starting when our children are born. We're putting away $100 a month until they're 18, and we get a 5% return on our money. And we end up with $35,000, so pretty good. And you can see there, to get to that 35,000, you're only out of pocket about 22,000. So that really shows you the power of starting early and also getting a little bit better return for your savings. Unfortunately, most families these days will save for their children's education just by putting money in a regular bank savings account that hardly earns you any return. So by starting early, getting a little bit better return, you can really make your dollars work harder for you. On the other hand, if you wanted to borrow $35,000 to pay for school, that's going to cost you almost $50,000. So you can see there, to get to pay back that $50,000, it's $400 a month, for 10 years versus $100 a month. So 400 versus 100, obviously a little bit easier on the pocketbook. So again, we just want to try to save as much as we possibly can. With our plan, our average account holder saves enough to pay for about 2 years worth of college. So how much you save is really just a personal decision. Some families want to pay for everything, some want to pay for half, but it's a personal decision on how much you want to save. So I want to give you a little bit of background about KY Save. So our plan has actually been around since 1990. We were one of the first states in the country to start an education savings plan for our citizens. About 3 years ago, we completely revamped the plan. So we have a new program manager, we lowered our fees, we have a completely new investment lineup, we improved our online access. So everything with our plan is done online. You open your account online, you get your statements online, so everything's done online. And we also have some platforms, some ways to get your friends and family involved in helping you save, which I'll talk more about later, and can be really powerful for you. So the program manager for KY Saves is a census. That's who I actually work for. The state of Kentucky hired us about 3 years ago to come in and manage the plan. So it's still Kentucky's plan. Every state has a 529. You don't have to use KY Saves 529. You can use any state's plan, but every state has a plan, and ours is one of the oldest, and it's has always been administered by the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority. So why would you use a 529 as opposed to, as I mentioned, the way most families save these days, it's just stuffing money into a bank savings account. So some of the biggest benefits of using a 529 are the tax features. So when you contribute to a 529, your money goes in after tax, but it grows tax deferred. So that's going to help your money grow faster and help you end up with more in the long run. Also, you don't pay any taxes on your distributions as long as you're paying for education expenses. So not only is your money growing faster with these tax advantages, you get to keep more of it to pay for education. So our plan is really flexible and affordable. We actually don't have any minimums. You can start an account with whatever fits in with your budget. Our investments are really intuitive and easy to understand, easy to set up. And the gifting and reward options, which I'm going to talk more about here later, can really help you boost your savings. So these benefits I just spoke about are true of all 529s, but the two benefits here on the right of your screen, you can only get with our plan. So number one is the financial aid benefit. So when it comes time for your child to choose the school that they want to attend, if your child goes to one of our schools here in Kentucky, they're not going to count what you saved in your 529 when they do that financial aid calculation. So that can potentially help you get a little bit more need-based student aid. Okay, so nice benefit there. If you open your plan while you're living in Kentucky, but later your family moves to another state and you become a resident of, let's say, Iowa, your child grows up and wants to come back and attend the University of Kentucky, your child could do so at in-state tuition rates, even though you're a resident of Iowa. So again, another potentially nice benefit there. So I mentioned tax deferral. So this is just an example of, what it looks like. Your money's growing faster, and in the end, you end up with more because you're not shaving off a little bit every year to pay taxes. It's just kind of snowballing. So helps you save more in the long run. So this is all the ways, all the things that you can use your savings to pay for. So a lot of people think that KY Saves or any type 529, it's only good for tuition, or your child has to go to a 4-year, has to get a 4-year degree, or your child would have to stay in Kentucky. So those are all big myths. Obviously, tuition's a big expense, but you can also use your 529 to pay for room and board, books, fees, supplies, computers, printers, internet access. If your child's a music major, you could buy a trombone. That would be an eligible expense. So really flexible in that sense. Doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. Your child could attend vocational school, trade school, apprenticeships, community college, professional programs like dental hygienists, things like that. And you can use your 529 to pay for all of that. So just about any path of education your child's going to choose, most likely you can pay for the 529. It's good in all 50 states too, so your child does not have to go to one of our schools here in Kentucky for you to use your plan, but you do get some extra benefits if your child does stay in the state. Another thing I'll mention is K through 12 private school tuition is also an eligible expense for your 529. So we actually get a lot of families in Kentucky that use their 529 to pay for K through 12 private school tuition. So again, there's no minimums. Our fees are very reasonable. They range from 0.20 to 0.83. So that means if you had a balance in your account of $1,000, your annual fee would range somewhere between $2 and $8.30, depending on your investment choice, which we're going to look at here in just a minute. And you can save up to $450,000 per beneficiary with KY Saves. So some nuts and bolts about the plan. So anybody can open a plan. Most of our accounts are opened by parents and grandparents, but you could open an account for yourself, for your spouse, for nieces, nephews, for your next door neighbor. You don't have to be related to the child that you open an account for, so it's very flexible in that sense. Also, you can change your beneficiary at any time, and I'm going to talk a little bit more here in a minute about why that's important, but you can change the beneficiary on your plan at any time. So 529s, they're a personal account, just like any personal account that you own. So you always have control of the funds. You can take your funds back at any time. You could close your account at any time if you wanted to. We make it really easy to pay your bills. When it's time to start paying those education expenses, you can actually send the money directly from your 529 to the school. Some families will make a withdrawal from the 529, put it in their checking account and write a check to the school. So however you would want to manage that, you're in complete control. I just always tell folks to make sure you keep good records, keep copies of receipts and cancel checks and things like that, because nobody's really watching how you spend the money, but if you get audited, they're going to want to see receipts and things like that. So this is probably the biggest question we get about 529. So obviously, if you're starting early, who knows what your child's going to want to grow up and do in the future. So we get a lot of questions around, what if my child doesn't go to school? So one option is to leave the money in the account. So you can just let it sit there and continue to grow tax deferred based on the way you have it invested. You can change the beneficiary, which I mentioned. So let's say you have 2 children and one decides they're going to use the 529 funds and the other is not, you can change the beneficiary to the child that is going to pursue their education further. If your child is not going to use it, you can make yourself the beneficiary if you want to continue your own education, or your spouse could become the beneficiary, cousins, so stepchildren, anybody related to the original beneficiary could become the new beneficiary. So let's say you do get into a situation where you've opened a 529 and you're just not going to use it to pay for education expenses. So for those types of withdrawals, you have to pay ordinary income tax and a 10% penalty. Okay, so the good news is you're only paying the penalty and the tax on your earnings. Okay, so not on the entire withdrawal. So remember, I said 529s you're contributing after tax. So we're not going to tax your contributions a second time. And there are some exceptions for the 10% penalty. So that would be death, disability, the receipt of a scholarship, and attendance at U.S. military academies. So if you do get a scholarship, let's say your child gets a $10,000 scholarship, you could make a $10,000 withdrawal from your plan in the same year that they got the scholarship and not have to pay the penalty on any portion of that withdrawal. So we understand, this is a long time commitment. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. One of the biggest mistakes I'll tell you though, that families make is counting too much on scholarships. So they tend not to save as much because they think they're going to get more in scholarships. And we saw earlier that the average student maybe gets about 10,000. Some get more, some get less, some don't get any. So I always tell families that don't worry about saving too much. Hardly ever any family saves too much for education. And if you are fortunate enough to get some nice scholarships, most likely you can supplement the scholarships with your 529. So if the scholarship only pays for tuition, you can use your 529 to pay room and board, things like that. So in almost any instance, you can still use your 529 to supplement any grants and scholarships you're going to get. So let's look at the investments. So with KYC's 529, there's 3 ways to manage your contributions. There's year of enrollment, asset allocation, and capital preservation. So the year of enrollment is probably what you're most familiar with. It looks like the same type of investment you might see in your 403B. So there's 8 different fund baskets to choose from. And what you're doing is you're picking the fund basket that has the year that most closely matches when your student is going to begin their higher education. So if you have a child right now that's going to be turning 18 10 years from now, that would be the year 2032. So the closest option to that would be 2031. And if you look at 2031 there, it's really aggressive in the beginning. The yellow and the orange, those are equities, US and international equities, stocks, the more volatile type investment. So it's really heavy on equities in the beginning. The blue is fixed income, the green is cash. So you're starting out pretty aggressive, but by the time you're ready to start tapping into that money, you can see the in-school enrollment option there on the far right. That's what your account's going to look like when it's time to start making withdrawals. It's going to be over half in cash, a big chunk in bonds, just a little bit in the equities. And we're managing this entire process for you. So we're putting together your portfolio in the beginning. We're managing the risk over time. We're making it a little bit more conservative as the years go by. And all you have to do is make your original selection in the beginning. The second option is asset allocation. So it works really similar to the year of enrollment option, but here you're the one that's actually building your own portfolio. So you have these 4 fund baskets to mix and match to suit your own, comfort with, how aggressive you want to be. What's your goal for your family, for your children, so you can build your own portfolio. And you're putting this together, and you're also managing the mix over time. So you're the one that's dialing it back as time goes by to make it more conservative. So a little bit more work involved if you want to choose this option. I wouldn't be afraid of it though. We actually have a lot of account owners that go with this option. So, but it is just a little bit more work on your behalf. And then the third option is capital preservation. So this option is just basically a savings account. It's an FDIC insured savings account. Right now, I think it pays about 0.5% in interest. So you might use this account if you have a really short time horizon, like maybe just a couple of years, or our families like to use asset allocation in conjunction with capital preservation. So as the years go by, they pull some money out of the market and they put it into the capital preservation account. So I told you that there's some ways that you can boost your savings with a 529, and these can actually be some really good ways to help you end up with more. UGift is a way to get your friends and family involved in helping you to save. So you get a code that you can share with your friends and family. Your friends and family can use that code to make contributions to your child's 529. So, every child, I'm sure, has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people that, would be more than happy to make a contribution to your child's education account, if they knew it was there. So, let them know it's there, share the code, and it's a good way to boost your savings. We have a mobile app that comes with our account, makes it even easier to share your UGift codes. You can text them directly to anybody that's a contact on your phone. UPromise is an online shopping and reward program that you can link to your 529. They'll give you $30 right now if you start an account with them, but part of your spending goes directly into your 529, and it's another great way to boost your savings. A third way to boost your savings is through estate planning. So there's some special rules around 529s that allow you to accelerate gifting with 529s. So this is another way to boost your savings with a 529. Can be powerful to help you end up with more in the long run. So I just want to review really quickly. So the tax benefits are huge. That's kind of the rocket fuel of 529s. You get to, your money grows faster and you get to keep more to pay for those expenses. We saw how flexible the 529 is. No matter what avenue of education your child pursues, you could probably pay for it with your 529. There's no minimum balance requirements to get an account open, and investments are really easy to understand and set up. And we saw, gifting and rewards, those are huge things you can take advantage of with your 529 to help you end up with more in the long run. So enrollment's really easy. Everything's done online. Our website is ky529.com. So you enroll online, you just need your child's social and birth date to get started. So again, ky529.com. And I always encourage everyone to do payroll direct deposit, and the University of Kentucky makes it really easy for employees to set up payroll direct deposit. They actually put in some of the information for you, and they have some real detailed step-by-step directions on the on the human resources pay portal where you set up your direct deposits. So it walks you through it, and it's really easy to set up payroll. Payroll is just going to make you more successful as a saver. It comes right out of your savings account. You don't have a chance to even, spend the money. You're going to end up with more that way. Okay, some important legal information. I'm going to wrap up here really quickly, but this is an investment. It is not guaranteed, so you can potentially lose money. But I always tell folks that if you have a little time on your side, you pick the right tool for the job, you're going to be just fine. So our plan is administered by the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority. Census College Savings Record Keeping Services is the program manager. Again, the closest thing we have to a guarantee would be the capital preservation option, which is an FDIC insured savings account. So again, here's our website, ky529.com. That's where you go to open your account, get more information, find out about events. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I really appreciate it. And I think maybe we're going to take a few minutes to answer any questions we might have.
Yes, so we have about 5 minutes for questions. So if you have a verbal question, you can raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you to ask your question and unmute yourself. And if you have another question, you can put it into the chat and we will read it for you. Brian Gardner, you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Wilcox, you mentioned that, if I understood you correctly, as part of the FAFSA, that Kentucky 529 savings plans did not have to be reported as, I guess, savings that goes against the aid-based calculation. Did I understand that correctly or not?
Yeah, you understood it correctly. So if your child goes to one of our schools here in Kentucky, the school is not going to count your 529 plan balance as part of the need-based financial aid calculation.
And is that for any 529 plan or just the Kentucky State 529 plan?
Just ours, just KYC's 529. So it's one of the special benefits you get for being a Kentucky resident and using our plan.
Okay. If starting one at a previous residence, what is is there a process to transfer from one state plan to, say, Kentucky's?
Yeah.
To take advantage of that?
Yeah, it's called a rollover. So what you'd want to do if you want to do that, you would first go online, open your account with us, and then you're going to see there's a link to do a rollover, to complete the paperwork for a rollover. So you just simply complete that paperwork for the rollover. Probably, I think you might have to send it off to the company that's holding your account, but it's a pretty simple process. You just first get your account open here and use our online system to complete the rollover paperwork, and then it'll be transferred electronically directly into your new account with us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So Joe, I have a question for you. I have a nephew who lives in another state, and I understand that the 529 is in every state, but is there any benefit for me to open a Kentucky Saves 529 here, even though it's possible he could go to school somewhere else, other than maybe enticing him to come back to Kentucky?
Well, the special residency, bonuses, extra benefits you get with KYC's 529, it actually depends on the beneficiary, where the beneficiary lives.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to be eligible for those extra benefits. So it's not going to penalize you by opening our plan, because you can use your savings in all 50 states. So since you can't really take advantage of the benefits that come with our plan for Kentucky residents, you could potentially shop around and see if maybe there's another plan out there that might have lower costs, things like that. You could check your plan where your nephew lives. So if the extra benefits that come from that state are based on where the beneficiary lives, then perhaps it could make sense to use their plan.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? So I think the rule is 7 seconds. And so I think we've gotten to 7 seconds. Well, thank you, Joe, for this presentation. I know that I didn't know this even existed. So it's great to know that it's there and to hear about many different advantages there are, particularly for if you have students who are going in state. So thank you again for that presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. And one thing I just wanted to add, I'm going to put a link in the chat box.
Sure.
So anybody that wants to, we do a quarterly drawing. You can win a $529 account. So I'm going to put a link in the chat box where you can link to the entry form for the drawing.
And you're welcome to put your email address if you want to. You can put your email address in the chat too if you'd like.
Okay.
That's up to you. I see you have a phone number so people can get to you that way. All right, for our second presentation today, titled Debt Coaching, a Resource for Taking Control of Your Debt, will be presented by Erica Linc with GreenPath. And GreenPath is a nonprofit that provides debt coaching and debt management solutions. And it combines Financial expertise with empathy, human-centered design, and behavioral economics. We'll be interested to hear how all that comes together. And again, if you have a question, if you could put it in the chat, we will try to ask that question for you, particularly if it's one where you need clarification. Otherwise, probably be easiest to hold your questions to the end, and we'll do just like we just did, asking you to raise your hand, or we'll read the chat from the moderator will read the chat for you. So Erica, we turn the program over to you, and thank you for being here today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Terry. And thank you everyone for having us here today. So like Terry said, my name is Erica, and I'm going to be sharing a bit about GreenPath and the benefits that you have through us, through our partnership with TIAA and the University of Kentucky. So my goal is just to give you, a basic understanding of who we are, what we do, and how we might be able to assist you. So today, what we'll be going over includes, what we do, how we can help, and also when you should reach out. So to just dive right into who GreenPath is and what we do, the first thing to know about us is that our mission is to empower people to lead financially healthy lives. And so I actually really loved going after Joe because I imagine many people have a goal of setting up their kids for success in, in their future, and a 529 account is a way to do that. And so when we talk with folks, oftentimes, their goals include that sort of thing, saving for college or for their child to go to a trade school, purchasing a home, setting aside enough money for retirement. So our mission is really to help people achieve those goals through our work. And to just give you an idea of our credentials, first of all, we're a nonprofit. We started in 1961. So last year we celebrated our 60th anniversary or birthday, whatever terminology you got to use for an organization. And we are licensed in all 50 states, and we are accredited by the Council on Accreditation. We also have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and we are a member of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And lastly, a thing I like to mention as well is that we're a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. So Terry mentioned that, we combine a few different things to provide our services, and we refer to that as the GreenPath difference. There are a lot of other organizations in the country that do similar work to us, and so we have identified 3 different kind of guiding principles that really set us apart. And the first one of that is empathy. So we have an empathy coach on staff who helps to train our staff in non-judgmental communication. Honestly, before our empathy coach came on board, her name is Maja. She's fantastic. When she came on board, we were like, yeah, we're a nonprofit. We help people with their money. Like, we don't judge them. Like, we got this empathy thing down. And, she kind of look at what we were doing. She's like, yeah, what you do, it's quite good, but I think you could definitely get to great. And so she has really, kind of changed how we interact with people, how we share information. And so our ultimate goal is to provide an empathetic experience to everyone who contacts us. So that's through how we ask questions, how we convey information, and also how we listen. Our training actually enables our staff to really listen deeply for people's needs and connect more deeply with their experiences. So that's one thing that makes us a bit different. Another thing is human-centered design. And so what that is essentially putting the person that you're serving at the center of what you're doing, what you're building. So we infuse human-centered design thinking into our culture, and this is through training of our staff, but then also through practice. So when we're designing a new tool or product, we really do, center the needs of the people we're serving. An example of this would be when we were actually creating a client portal. We, had some ideas on how we were going to go about doing that, and we actually ended up going to some of our clients and being like, hey, we have these two different options. Here's option A. It was like a pretty simple design, not as many bells and whistles. And then here's option 2. And, that was, it had a lot of more functionality. And we asked what they would prefer. And we were convinced that they would go for the second option, the one with more. But overwhelmingly, the feedback we got was go with number 1. We like number 1. We like that first option. And so we really have embraced getting feedback, putting it into practice, and continuing to iterate on things that we're doing. And then the third thing that makes us a bit different is behavioral economics. So basically, to help us understand human behavior, we use behavioral science principles. And behavioral science, behavioral economics, it helps provide understanding about why people make certain financial choices. And that allows us then to, basically meet our goal of helping people make the healthiest financial choices possible. So behavioral economics plays into, making it easier for people to take the option that might be best for them. Rethinking how something is designed. And so we really have found that these 3 things that contribute to the GreenPath difference has really changed the game for how we interact with people. But let's talk next about how we can help. So we offer something called one-on-one debt coaching. And as I'm talking about this, I'll just mention that before I entered the role of strategic partnership manager, I was actually one of our financial coaches. So I speak from firsthand experience, having worked with folks. And so if you do have, of course, questions about our coaching, I'm more than happy to answer those. But some basic things to know about our coaching include that, first of all, it's free and it's confidential. So you're not going to have to pay to talk to us, and we're going to keep what we talk about confidential. It's also customized. So this isn't a cookie cutter approach. Our coaches aren't reading a script. They are really going to be customizing this to every single person that they talk to. Oh, I think I had an echo there. Okay, it seems like it's gone. Hopefully that's the case. So, as we go about coaching folks, there's a few different things, though, that we definitely want to make sure we touch on. So I'm going to go through those just briefly. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is understand your situation and goals. So understand what's going on right now and where are you hoping to get to. And this is really foundational to the entire coaching session, because that's going to really help ground our coach in understanding what you want to get out of this session, so that they're not, going in a bunch of different directions that really aren't going to meet your needs. So understanding where you're at now, where you want to get to. And it's different for every single person. As I mentioned before, some people are very much, focused on the future, like long-term planning. We also talk to folks who are like, I feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not even sure I do have any long-term goals, and that's totally okay. We can meet you where you're at and kind of help you come up with a plan to get to where you want to get to. So from there, once we understand your situation and goals, we then, with your permission, do a soft pull of your credit report and review that with you. And so just to give you a quick heads up, so when we pull the credit report, it isn't what's considered a hard pull. So it's not like you're applying for credit with us to get a credit card or a personal loan or something. So it's not going to affect your score like it would if you were to apply for credit somewhere. So this is just a soft pull in order to get some information from your credit report. And this helps us, first of all, to get a bunch of information quickly, understand what sort of debts you have out there, what sort of status those debts are in. And it also helps us to then start building out a personalized budget. So we're going to go through, what are you making? What are you bringing home each month, through your paycheck? We'll also talk about what's going out in terms of different expenses, just so that we can get an idea of your cash flow, because then that's really going to guide us talking about different options. So if you have debt, what options exist for paying off that debt? We can cover ways that you can handle that debt on your own through, accelerating your repayment through a debt snowball or debt avalanche. We might talk about the pros and cons of getting a consolidation loan from your local bank or credit union. We'll also talk through options related to things that we offer, like a debt management plan, which I will talk a bit more about in a second. And we can also cover and answer any questions that you have about other things like, say, debt settlement or bankruptcy. So we're able to provide a bunch of customized education to you. And lastly, we develop an action plan. So we are documenting all the things we're talking about with you, putting those together into an action plan, and that is actually sent to you post coaching. So a copy of everything we covered, the budget, action items, resources that is sent to you post coaching to your email. So one thing that I mentioned just a little bit ago that we offer is something called a debt management plan. And I know for myself, I did not know what a debt management plan was before I worked at GreenPath. And so what it is essentially a repayment plan that we design that are offered by nonprofit organizations like GreenPath. And so we work with your creditors to potentially get lower monthly payments, lower interest rates, waived late fees, basically better repayment terms with the goal of getting you out of debt completely in 3 to 5 years. And so we are able to do this, like, negotiate those different terms because of our 60-year history and long-term relationships that we've had with numerous creditors that allow us to work on your behalf and secure new payment arrangements. So if you were to set up on a debt management plan, you would set up a monthly or a regular deposit with us. It could be monthly, bi-weekly, weekly. You can match it up to your pay schedule. And then that deposit to GreenPath, we would take that money and pay the debts that are enrolled on the debt management plan on your behalf each month. So rather than having to stay on top of like 3, 5, 10 different payments each month, you would just have to worry about one instead. So it's a way to also just kind of simplify your debt repayment. So it's one thing for me to talk about this. It's another thing to kind of see it in action. So I wanted to share a story with all of you. And this is based on a real client of ours. Her name is not Penny, but we're going to call her Penny. And Penny was a client of ours who came to us after going through a period of unemployment. So for about a year, she was out of work and lost about $75,000 in income. And during that time, her debt grew out of control. She had drained her savings before having to tap into her credit, but eventually, in order to make ends meet during that time, she had to start, utilizing her credit cards for day-to-day expenses. So she eventually got back to work, but was still struggling. So what she struggled with was tracking her spending. She also was feeling that her debt levels were increasing month over month just due to the interest and maybe due to continue to use the cards. And she was facing a total of $15,000 of debt that had accumulated over 2 years. So at that point, she was back to work, but having trouble. And so her employer actually referred her over to GreenPath in order to see what we could do to help. So here is what it looked like for Penny before the debt management plan. So she had 4 credit cards, all at, pretty standard interest rates with minimum monthly payments totaling $740 per month. This is what we were able to do for her with the debt management plan. So it depends on the creditor. So I'll just say that, we can't guarantee like 2% on every card that's enrolled on the debt management plan. But as you can see, even in the case of like, the 17% one, we're able to get significant reductions in interest rates. And that translates over then to minimum monthly payments that go down. So rather than paying, $740 per month, Penny was paying $480. And for those of you who can do mental math really quickly, you might say, hey, Erica, I noticed that there is $38 missing from that total of $480. And you would be right. So as I mentioned before, our debt coaching, our one-on-one debt coaching is absolutely free. but there is a fee that we charge for the debt management plan. So in Penny's case, it was $38 per month. And it really is dependent on a variety of factors. It depends on the state you live in. It also depends on the amount of debt that you have. And so it really varies, but the maximum the monthly fee could be is $75 per month. And on average, it's about $38 per month for our clients. We also normally charge a setup fee that can be up to $50. However, through the partnership that we have with TIAA and the University of Kentucky, we actually are waiving that for employees. So that's just a kind of a side benefit of this relationship. So with Penny, going back to Penny, we were able to, do this for her. So she had a savings of $260 per month. She was able to pay off her debt in 36 months, and she saved over $24,000 in interest through the debt management plan versus paying it on her own. So one thing I should mention is that, having paid off the debt in 36 months, she paid that debt in full. So it's not like we negotiated some sort of settlement for her. She paid off her full debt. And we were able to help her do that through the debt management plan. And so if you were to consider enrolling in a debt management plan, on top of having our staff support you, we also have a client portal where you can get 24/7 access to your account information. So I know that we've heard from clients that they really appreciate the transparency, being able to see their progress. We have found that you can kind of see in the screenshot that, there's this little progress bar here. We have actually found that that's really motivating because when you set up on a debt management plan, 5 years can be, that's kind of a long time. And so it's hard to, maintain momentum, maintain motivation. So we really want to celebrate wins along the way. So over time, as you go along, this bar fills up, and we've heard from clients that really is just exciting and can really motivate, continuing in the plan. Another thing is that our clients have access to a peer support group on Facebook. So we have a closed Facebook group where folks can join and ask questions, share their stories. Sometimes they vent. Sometimes they're just like, hey, I feel embarrassed. I remember seeing a post where someone's like, can anyone let me know that I'm not the only one with 7 credit cards on the debt management plan? And people chimed in saying, I had 13, I had 10. So it's really a really supportive place, and really one of the most positive places on the internet that I've encountered. And then of course, ongoing support from GreenPath staff as well. So you might be thinking, okay, I understand this organization, I think, but does it make sense for me to reach out? And I would say, if you're experiencing any of the following things, it does. So if you're struggling to get a loan or credit, reach out to us. We can go, we pull we pull a copy of your credit report so we can go over it, help you understand what's going on there, give you next steps to take to improve your credit, improve, kind of what's on there. If you are, if you're paying on high interest debt, contact us. We can, potentially set you up on a debt management plan, but we can also explore options for you to handle that debt, through different means, through, again, like a debt snowball or a debt avalanche method, or, pursuing other ways to handle that debt. If you're just wanting to better understand credit, give us a call. I before working at GreenPath and going through training, I did not understand credit. And so, you have very easy access to your credit score normally, but sometimes it's hard to understand, like, what am I doing that's either helping it or hurting it? And what can I do going forward to, continue to build on it? So our counselor or our coaches can help you understand that. And if you're wanting to start a budget or a savings plan, like you're thinking, yeah, I want to take advantage of that 529 program, but I'm not sure where I'm going to be able to find $100 per month, give us a call. We can help you take a look at your budget, help you come up with a plan for being able to put aside money for the future. And also, if you're considering buying a house, So again, we're a HUD approved housing counseling agency. So we're able to, help educate you on the home buying process, what to do to get prepared. In short, we can help. And connecting with us, it's very quick and it's very simple. You can call us. So you can call us at this number, 877-655-2340. And the intake process, it generally takes only about 5 minutes. And then you can choose to make an appointment to speak with one of our coaches later. Or if you're ready, willing, and able, and you want to talk to a coach right away, you can do that. That's one of the things that I should have mentioned. This is another thing that sets us apart, is we have really structured our staffing so that we're able to provide coaching right away. You don't have to wait a week, 2 weeks in order to talk to one of our coaches. If you're ready, we're ready. So you can contact us and speak to someone right away. And yeah, so I know that we wanted to set aside some time for questions. So I was curious if any had come in so far.
We do have 2 questions from the chat. First is from Alex Dulay. Would you recommend starting a 529 after you are out of debt?
Ooh, that is a good question. So, I don't provide investment advice. So this is kind of more just like, I'll just preface my answer with that. But I would say it's based on what I saw from that presentation. One of the important things is starting early so that, you can contribute, but it really depends on your financial situation. I would say, without knowing more, so I think I'm going to back up a little bit, without knowing more about kind of what your cash flow looks like, what sort of debts you're paying on, the interest rates, all of those different things. It's hard for me to say, but I would recommend maybe giving us a call so that you can talk to one of our coaches. I was going into coaching mode, as you could probably tell. I was like, all right, let's talk this through, but not knowing enough, it's hard for me to answer that one way or another. But I would say, if possible, probably try to do both, try to be paying off your debt and maybe starting to save, just because, there is that advantage of starting early, if possible. But again, you don't want to put, different things like your housing or your utilities or food at jeopardy, in the short term for that either. So yeah, that was not a very succinct answer. Hopefully that helped though.
Thank you, Erica. Question number 2 is from Rodna Abbott. How does a DMP impact credit scores?
Ooh, that was a great question. So it really depends on where you're starting out from. So one of the parts, and I forgot to mention this, is that when you enroll on a debt management plan, part of getting the reduced interest rates, going from 20% to 2%, one of kind of the cost of entry with that is that any debt that is enrolled on the debt management plan, like any credit card, the account does close. And thinking about it from the creditor's perspective, if they're going to give you a reduced interest rate, they don't want you to keep, using that card and, getting new debt onto that account. So because of the closure of those accounts, it could have a negative effect on the score initially. The reason I say it depends on where you're starting out from is because when you're looking at how a credit score is calculated, the second most important kind of part of that is the amount of your available credit that you are currently using. So if you have a credit limit of 10,000, how much of that 10,000 are you currently using? So we generally recommend that people try to keep their utilization below 30%, because then it is going to start affecting your score. So let's say that you're at that 30% or below. Closing that credit card then is going to take you from 30% to 100% utilization. So it is going to have a negative effect on the score. However, if you have, if you're either, nearly maxed out or fully maxed out, so you're already using nearly all of that available credit, and then the card closes because of the debt management plan, that's not going to have much of an effect because the negative effect of the score, the damage to the score has already been done. So it really depends on where you're starting out from. And then while you're enrolled on the debt management plan, we're going to be making monthly payments on your behalf each month. So that's a positive payment history is actually the most important part of your credit score. That's 35% of your score. The calculation is based on on-time monthly payments. So we're going to be, continuing that history of good timely payments. And as your balances go down, as you're paying them off, you're going to see your score rise. So we generally see that people, if they do have an initial dip to their score, it generally goes back up over time. So it really depends, if you're thinking, if that's one of the things you're weighing out, it really depends on what your goals are. Are you looking to buy a house in the next year? Maybe in the next 5 years? That's going to change the calculus. But I would say that's something that our coaches also can discuss with you, kind of talking through the pros and cons, because that effect on the score, it is a con. But if you're potentially going to be saving thousands of dollars, it might be worth it to have that short term, dip to the score. Any other questions?
All right, we do have a couple other questions. We are kind of running up on time though. Terry, could you go ahead and put the links to the voting for the Staff Senate and to the Walk for Wishes event in the chat for us? And our next question, Erica, one thing I did want to point out before we start losing some folks is that both of these benefits are not tied to UK's open enrollments. These are open for you at any time. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe or Erica, but I believe that's my understanding of these.
Yeah, that's true. That's the same for KY Saves.
Thank you. Erica, for our third question, Jennifer Robbins asked, do you also help with student loans?
Yes, so during that debt coaching session, we can talk through, if you do have student debt that shows up on the credit report, we can talk through kind of like what type of debts they are, options for repaying those debts, depending on the type of debt it is versus, like private student loans versus public. So our coach can, help talk through. As far as like with the debt management plan, we aren't able to get any sort of like, we call them concessions, so the reduced interest rates or reduced monthly payments. We're not able to get any of those for student loans, but we can provide some guidance on repayment.
All right, and for our fourth question, Jackson Huff asked, does GreenPath have any experience working with school debt rather than consumer debt?
Oh, school debt meaning, is that like student loan debt?
Jackson, feel free to unmute if you can.
Oh, not loans. Interesting. So I'm thinking maybe to do with like school debt as far as maybe, or Jackson, are you able to unmute and maybe clarify? If not, that's okay. Well, I will say that I know that sometimes like different debts that are owed to a school can sometimes, if they're not paid, could end up going eventually to collections. So if that's kind of what, depending on the situation, I know like different debts, like as far as medical debts or I had a client who I believe she had like a library, some library past due fees that went to collections. So we're able to help talk through options for paying those back. Okay, definitely involving collections. Yeah, so we're able to give you advice on how to tackle those debts. We're also able to enroll those sorts of debts on the debt management plan. So any sort of unsecured debt like collections or medical debt, absolutely, we can assist with.
And then Erica, we did have another question from Laura Sidwell. Do you have to have an account with TIAA to take part in this?
So I don't believe so, but Adam, I might put you on the spot really quick just so that I'm not speaking out of turn. I believe it's available to all University of Kentucky employees.
Thank you so much, Erica. Yes, I am Adam Murphy. I'm Managing Director from TIAA, and I cover advice and financial wellness. This offer is for employees of the University of Kentucky. You do not have to be part of a TIAA retirement program. It's eligible to anyone who's an employee. The same goes, and I know there's been some conversation on student debt and student loans. Every employee of the University of Kentucky is eligible for the federal government's public service loan forgiveness program. That's outside of this GreenPath arrangement. It's provided to you at the University of Kentucky by another third party, Savvy, that we also curate, just like with GreenPath. So while Erica was talking about some of maybe the refinancing options, you do also have the federal government's student loan forgiveness program. Both of those programs, voluntary benefits outside of your annual enrollment period, to Stephen's point earlier, and eligible to anyone employed by the University of Kentucky.
Thank you, Adam. And for that Savvy program with the student loan repayment, we did actually have a presentation on that for our Lunch and Learn, I believe it was 2 or 3 months ago, and that is available on our YouTube channel for anybody who's interested. We'll go last call for any questions. I'm not seeing any in the chat, and I see no hands raised. So Terry, I'll turn it back over to you.
Right. Well, thank you to both Joe and to Erica for being with us today and sharing that information. I think it will touch people in all kinds of ways, and if not ours, then maybe some family and friends that we can tell them about. So it's a perfect example. If you're here today and you've seen something that's of value to you, if you can share that with a colleague here at UK, then maybe next week we can get them here and they can enjoy the benefits of this information. So I have put the links into the chat for voting for Staff Senate and for the Staff Senate member for the Board of Trustees. So we do hope you'll vote, and that's by Sunday that you have to vote by that time. There's also that link will take you to Women's Forum and one other thing that's escaping me, but anyway, there's more than one.
Board of Trustees.
Board of Trustees, that's what it is. So hope you'll take advantage of that. And anything that you'd want to know about Staff Senate is in the very last link for the Staff Senate page. That includes announcements, recordings of these presentations, and we hope that you will take advantage of that. And again, I'm a staff senator. Stephen Reed is the chair of a professional development committee. And if you have thoughts about information that you would like to get from Staff Senate, if you have ideas for ways that we can bring other people onto our Lunch and Learns or have speaker ideas for us, we'd be happy to hear from you. And there's a way on that Staff Senate that you can click a button and it will go right to where it needs to go so that we can take care of that. All right. So thank you again. Appreciate your time today. And we hope to see you again on June the 17th with a Z of 80. Thank you so much.